Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's meeting with the OCP HPC sub-project. So my brief agenda today is really all around the funding aspects. I've had some communication on a couple of fronts with in two areas, and so I wanted to cover both of those. And mainly because I think we have probably this is our best opportunity to get funding, and it's how we go about getting that funding that I wanted to discuss. And we're going to need interested parties to put pen to paper to achieve this. So that's the main reason for today's meeting. And either the companies on this call, or if we feel that it would be good for one of the ones that has attended multiple times and helped out in the past, whether we think that maybe some of our colleagues in other companies might be good leads and others can tag along. I think it's if we can collaborate at various levels, that's where I wanted to get to. So if we can actually establish real interest or not in trying to put the energy into trying to source these government funds, and I think that maybe they could be fairly. I'm not sure exactly how quick the timeline is to getting that funding, but that's where I want to pull the thread today. Okay, so let me share my screen. Sorry. Yeah. Right. So first of all, introduction to new attendees. I don't believe anyone's new on the call. I found you all in my spreadsheet, so we can bypass that one today. Okay, so the first one is I wanted to really update you on the fact that we've got a meeting with the CHIPS Act group this week in Washington, D.C., and I'm actually going to fly out there. I'm flying out tomorrow morning for that meeting. So at the OCP Global Summit and the Samsung Memory Day, there was a guy that was from the CHIPS Act group just finding out all about OCP. And he also attended the Samsung Day. I bumped into him. I think I might have been in a conversation with him where I was just a participant at OCP Summit, but I actually got onto a one-on-one conversation with him at the Samsung Memory workshop on the Friday after the OCP Summit. And he got back in touch with the OCP management and said that they really like the open approach of OCP, and they would like to see how they can involve and work with OCP in getting efforts moving forward from a CHIPS Act perspective. And he highlighted both BAPI's ODSA, the chiplet work group, and ours, the OCP HPC, is 2 points that caught his interest from the conversations he had. So anyway, that's now culminated in this meeting. It is I don't want to oversell it. It is a very high level meeting, really introducing his colleagues into who is OCP and what do we have going on there. And so I've got an opportunity to actually let them know a little bit about what we're trying to do. And I'll probably end up giving a presentation somewhat similar to the OCP Global Summit presentation that I gave. But I'm working on that alongside the OCP management as we speak. So that one is interesting, but that's all I can say on that. So we will see where that goes. Any questions on that one in particular, or any comments, or did anyone else have any conversations with them?
So, Alan, is the CHIPS Act group, does they know about this new frontier? Are they interconnected somehow?
So again, the CHIPS Act and who, sorry?
Yeah, if the CHIPS Act knows the RFP that's on for the new frontier, right, from the Oakland National Lab?
Yeah, well, so that's a good question, Munir. So this CHIPS Act guy is really at the, I guess, the senior management level of the entire CHIPS Act organization. So there's obviously a ton of stuff going on that's already been enabled by the CHIPS Act. And to your point, the Oak Ridge National Labs DOE New Frontiers RFP does reference CHIPS Act funding. So it looks like CHIPS Act funding is helping the Oak Ridge National Labs one as well. So, but I think that's just one program that's going on. Obviously, it came out of the response we gave to their RFI back in August 22. They've now turned that RFI. They've taken all the feedback we all gave and created the RFP, which is in draft form at the moment, as we've discussed. And that's obviously focused primarily on the next exascale supercomputers in the 5 to 10 year time frame, but doing R&D on various aspects that could end up being part of that new machine. So I guess so that is very specific that we can target, and maybe my meeting with the CHIPS Act people say, hey, engage with that RFP, or maybe there'll be separate funds that would be funneled somehow through OCP. That's the discussion to be had, I guess. Does that make sense?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Alan, I noticed in Bobby's call yesterday or the day before that he mentioned this topic also. Are you coordinating with him?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so
okay.
Basically, BAPI, the ODSA. So Cliff Grosner, the VP of marketing or whatever the title is, in OCP is taking care of the primary. And to be perfectly honest, yeah, BAPI is heavily involved in that. So that's like the core thrust, should we say, in terms of from the OCP's perspective, because ODSA is an extremely well-established group and tremendous contribution and real output. So also BAPI also works for the DOE directly. He has a subcontract with the DOE, so he's plugged into a lot of things there already, government-wise.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Taking the lion's share, but yeah, they took Sanjay, the guy that we met with, took a particular interest in what we're doing here, and so we are looking at whether it makes sense to dovetail the two, but we're presenting them as two separate pieces, and whether they eventually dovetail, we will see.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Okay. Okay, that's the CHIPS Act. If there's no other questions on that, so let's get into the proposals. So, no, then what did I do? Let me just double check whether I've got. So just. Apologies. Oh, I put it in here. Okay, great. So in the discuss the proposals in preparation for this Oak Ridge National Lab, I actually did email them a couple of weeks back now, with regards to how and if they would take an interest in proposals from OCP, and in particular the OCP HPC sub-project. But the way I asked the question, because of the way we've had discussions with them in the past, the DOE, whenever they're commissioning a new machine or anything along those lines, they tend to like to have one throat to choke, so to speak, that then wouldn't then manage a whole bunch of subcontractors doing the work underneath. Now that's obviously for the big machines. And from an R&D perspective, I think the R&D can be, you know, if you're making progress in any one particular dimension, then you can put a response to their RFP, and you know, you can progress research in that particular avenue, and assuming you get funded, obviously. Now, obviously, we're trying to create this brand new thing from the ground up. This that needs not necessarily research. Is sort of big. I call it small R, big D, in terms of what we're trying to achieve here. And but it's across a whole bunch of disciplines, and so it would be nice to have it all coordinated, like with one lead systems integrator type contractor, and then they would take in sub proposals from all of the different disciplines: thermal, power, signal integrity, the certain module designs from we're using silicon from the different vendors, etc. And we would just say, hey, we want 20 million, 100 million, whatever the number is, to do this, and bring HPCM to a proof of concept level, where we've ticked all of the questions that Andrew's asked me in his email, and basically we've got something that is potentially viable to scale into a production form of one form or other.
So, Alan, this is the question I have, right? I think looks like I'm just trying to understand the scope here. So typically, if you look at the frontier design, right, before the new frontier one, they usually work with a big company like the Cray build their first systems, right? You know, the first supercomputer, the Cray build it, and then they usually like to work with the company. Basically, that's how it works. Whereas OCP is kind of like, it's not a company, right? It's a non-profitable, some entities going together. So I'm not sure, how, I see your proposal that you're going to put some kind of entity there or some kind of person who's going to be doing subcontracting, but is that framework is suggested or allowed in the OCP somehow?
So if I understood your question correctly, yeah, you're absolutely right. And OCP do not want to get in the process of the winning of these contracts. The fact is that the proposals we would put in would say all of this effort we're doing will culminate in OCP products, and specifically an open architecture. I mean, the way I see it, the terminology I've been using, up until now, is that we, in standard server land, we still have the IBM PC from 1981. Okay, it's morphed a little bit, but you can just plug PCI cards in as accelerators. They were just IO cards back in the 80s, but we've evolved, and that's what everyone has access to. But if you look at what's really going on in the industry, you've got a complete change. In fact, that's what OCP, Facebook needed to change the way things were built, right from the data center infrastructure down to the individual nodes. And they did that, and that's how OCP got created. NVIDIA got DGX, Tesla got Dojo, Google have got TPU, and even startups like Cerebras have got their wafer scale. So we've got all of these different solutions at the system level to solve the demands of heterogeneous composable computing today, and yet they're all proprietary. So what I'm trying to do here is say, under an OCP guise, we need to reinvent the IBM PC for today's computing needs, which are completely different to when the IBM PC was invented. And so obviously with a sustainability and an energy-centric computing first requirement. And so the idea would be that any one of the contributions, either if we go as one coordinated, one system integrator with putting forward one huge proposal with all of the contributors, companies below them, and we collaborate like that on the proposal, it would go from the companies. OCP wouldn't be involved, but the clear statements in the proposal would be that these things would be donated, so we have a truly open platform at the end. That would be it. And OCP, you know, so they would be where you would record all of your specifications, and donate all of the product architectures as examples for people to work from, you know, and so that's the idea. Does that answer your question, Munir?
No, yeah, I think, yeah, I think at a high level, yeah. Alan, thanks for the answer. I understand that, but I think the underlying, the low level layer is going to be still a lot more things to discuss, right? How companies going to contribute, how is mostly going to manage those things, who's going to be system contributor, all the follow-up questions and all those things, how the funding is going to be managed. But I think, but at a high level, I agree with you. We can.
Yeah, well, yeah. So the OCP does. In fact, I'm going to join an onboarding. Somebody's doing a special onboarding for new OCP members, but I'm tagging on to that because there is a lot of mechanisms inside OCP for, you know, the formalities of bringing specifications. There's templates, how to, you know, the process of pushing product into OCP. So I think a lot of what you've just said there is pretty much documented. You need to get up to speed on it. But just specifically on the funding will definitely not go through OCP. It will go through to the bids that, you know, the companies that provide the bids. But the clarity will need to be in the proposals that, you know, what's going into OCP. Obviously, if you've got your own secret sauce, your widget piece of this that you want to keep as your own, it's like, you know, we need to make sure the system architecture is entirely open at the interfaces and that people can innovate inside between those interfaces is where all the companies can benefit, right, with their own IP.
Yes, yeah, I see the high level, but I think that this needs much more discussion, right? Because
yeah, no, I agree, and to be honest with you, this meeting with the CHIPS Act on Thursday, if as much as anything, the OCP management, and I've had conversations with them directly as well, are saying, how do we need to change to support this? But by the way, we are not going to be a company in the path of the monies, or we're not going to be the throat to choke. So OCP are more than happy to change in what makes the government happy, and you know, and also gets this much more democratized, open collaboration going on, versus these very proprietary machines that they get today.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, and I think as we put these proposals together, I do think that if we have questions or we want to say, you know, around IP or around how do we declare the open pieces, I think we can have those conversations with OCP and or with the government. We're still in draft, by the way, with the government right now, so they haven't done the formal RFP. So you can still ask questions of them. Actually, so on that note, I've put the email basically verbatim of what I sent in, and apologies if your name's not in here. Don't worry. I basically just gave a few examples of people that have participated in the past, and I've said this. In fact, I've said the above companies are not committed to participating at these junctures, and at this juncture, and others may be added depending on their interest. Right, so this is just to show. This was just to show the government that that we do have these participants that potentially could help out.
Sure. My main, you know, I think main thing that you know, before, because I think from the technical perspective, you know, Alan, you did a lot of work, right? This is a 3 years work, and I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So I don't have any doubt on the technical side, but I think we may be struggle if this question of the modeling these things, right? How are we going to model the OCP? How are we going to bring all the companies together and all those things? And that's the choking
Yeah.
point that, yeah, from the DOS perspective, because they don't
Yeah.
like that, you know? Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, no, and in terms of collaboration across the companies here, I think you've knocked the nail on the head. This is the biggest challenge with this is we are literally working across all the silos, and that's the whole idea of this. And so, I mean, that's where maybe doing this piecemeal isn't such a good idea. Like if half of the things get funded or only a couple get funded, but the rest don't, then is that really any good? So I did ask them. I asked them if they would be willing to have individual proposals that were contributing towards the success of what OCP HPCs is trying to do, or would they only want to see one proposal with all of the contributions bundled into that one proposal? He didn't answer, so the reply I got back from him only answered this question because AMD in particular have said to me they would jump in with both feet if the government said they would be really happy to see responses from OCP, that were motivated by the openness of OCP. So that I put there, I put in this little part of the email. I said, is there any statement that could be made from the New Frontiers team that an RFP response based around OCP collaboration would be highly encouraged? And he basically said no. He just said, we cannot, as a government, we can't endorse any approach to these bids. It's just not allowed. So, which isn't a surprising answer, but I did ask the question. But for us to really get an AMD involved, and Michael, I don't know if you want to say with from a Samsung perspective, because I said if we need to get us going, if we had an AMD or an IBM, I might still be able to grab IBM. I need to contact IBM because I've got a tremendous relationship with them. So I may still be able to corner them, but again, it's a case of when it goes to their upper management, it ends up being a tougher ask, should we say? But AMD gave me, sorry.
Actually, yeah, I'm actually in the middle of a discussion with my upper manager regarding like Samsung on this memory pooling and sharing solution with the HPCN. I think those are the very interesting subject in the industry. So I will let you know, later. So
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael, for actually raising that with your upper management there. And by the way, I mean, if Samsung was prepared to be sort of a lead here of pulling all these pieces together, then I think that would be a tremendous proposal. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I will let you know. And then, what's the timeline of this one? I'm curious about chip.
So that's a good question.
RFP,
They've given no timeline. All they've said is this is a draft RFP, and they're inviting comments and questions. And I mean, in the response I got to this just a couple of days ago, he said they're taking. Thank you for the feedback. We are taking all the questions and input into updating the formal RFP. So it may be coming out imminently. It may be still a few months away when the formal RFP comes out, and I believe there will be. I don't know exactly how long the window will be, but I'm assuming it'll be a couple of months in terms of for people to respond formally to the formal RFP. So we're still in the draft at the moment, so there's no deadline right now. We'll know the deadline when they release the full RFP.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got time, but I would say I would put urgency on it though, because obviously all the companies that typically work with the government on these sorts of things have got entire teams, the people that build the exascale machines themselves. So there will be a tremendous, they'll be working on this full time and asking for probably several $100 million for their research efforts. So yeah, in order for us to have a decent response, I think we really need to be getting on top of this now. And whilst I think, and I do really think that us having one lead company and one of the big guys like Samsung, AMD, IBM would be a fantastic lead. A possible alternative would be a small systems integrator, like maybe a Penguin Computing, although I haven't managed to, I did speak to the CTO of Penguin at Supercomputing, but I haven't managed to nail down whether they would be interested. But equally, having said that, in terms of we need separate sub proposals anyway. Like on the thermal, I think the thermal and power delivery loop is a critical one. And we could make a test vehicle without putting the very expensive silicon. We just make a load slammer product, you know, where we can load slam 1,000 watts, and you know, and test out the thermal structure. And certainly, I don't know if there's any thermal companies on the call, but Boyd, the VPs at Boyd that have participated here are extremely excited by what we're doing thermally, and they've got their own ideas. And they said if there was funding, so I'm hoping that I could get them to maybe lead the thermal effort with a few other thermal companies. But yeah, so and the interconnect, obviously, we've kicked off the interconnect sub-project meetings. We could put together some proposals there for that part of it, of innovating on the interconnect side for the active cooling of active cables, for the thermal cooling of active cables. And on the optical side, again, we've got some ideas on bringing the optical out the bottom of the module. So some optic companies could put, again, sub proposals in, and they could all dovetail in. So the work, everybody can start work on their own little groups, and you know, and I would encourage that we don't do them, because this is an open standard. I would encourage that we get multiple companies from each of the disciplines to work on a proposal together, where they would all get funded, and you know, they'd all want to protect certain pieces of IP, but they would understand we need to open up certain pieces for this to be a truly open architecture. And I think the collaboration amongst those similar companies would actually facilitate getting us to a successful destination. So that's the opportunity, I believe. So Michael, you've sort of said you're investigating inside Samsung, so thank you for that. That's great news. Also, Munir from Lattice, we've had some discussions with a few others, and so I know that you're looking at it heavily. So thank you for that, Munir. So
Alan, we also have, and I was talking with one of our senior director who does a DOE business.
Okay.
So if you need, if some connections that's needed, let us know if we can be any help.
Okay, that would be good. Right. Okay. So, well, depending on, I think it's good to just get them up to speed, and if they've already got the connections, maybe they can talk to the DOE directly about participation with OCP and pushing things through. They can get you know, either a good feeling that this is an approach that the government would like. I mean, the government have said on many occasions they do want more of an open, modular, and upgradable architecture than they get from the current approach to these machines. So and they do like what OCP is doing, but where they get stuck is how do they do the contractual vehicles? This is where they always get stuck with the complications around that.
So yeah, so this is exactly the question that, so when I had this meeting internally with our VP and senior directors, who actually takes care of the DOE side of the business, this is the question actually came out. And I think now that I understand, because I wanted to talk to you first before I go and approach them about what is the framework that we can work together, right? Now that I can probably, let me talk to them, and see if they can, I don't know, they're basically dedicated for DOE type business, right? So they can.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, well, actually, Munir, the opportunity here as well, I think we probably are in a pretty good position to shape it as well, because everyone's sort of, the OCP are saying, we don't mind changing a bit, but we won't be the one for it to choke, sort of thing. So I think the government really wants to try and get out of this endless round robin loop that they've had for for all of their big machines over the many decades. And so everybody's motivated, but nobody really knows. This is my take anyway. Nobody really knows how to go about it. So if somebody says, if your guys that know the DOE well and know what you need commercially, et cetera, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for us to just lay out, why don't we do it like this? This works because. So rather than just assume somebody else is going to tell you the way it goes and then you decide whether it's good for you or not.
Sure.
Make it good for you is what I'm trying to say.
So Alan, I think let's have this meeting. Once you have the meeting, please schedule a meeting with you and our DOE guys, who looks at the business, and he can give you some points, maybe that way it will be better for us to push together this RFP report. So I'll schedule a meeting with you, Alan.
Great, right. So we've got Lattice so that's on the system management side. I don't know if, Lattice are a pretty big company. I don't know if you would like to lead the whole thing. I would imagine probably not, but
we won't have the bandwidth, but yeah, I think we're pretty good size, but probably won't have the bandwidth, but I think Samsung or AMD makes more sense, from when I see the list, because these guys, it's pretty much every single arms they have they work, right? But it's up to you.
Yeah. And on the Samsung, Michael, while I think that Samsung could potentially make a great lead, front company on this. Sorry, I was just thinking out loud there. I think that the memory disaggregation in the CXL, that obviously Samsung are pushing harder than almost everybody, and have got so much product around it. This does play into this disaggregation game that CXL is trying to build up as well, from a grounds up approach, as opposed to, if you look at the OCP DCMHS, it still looks like a pretty traditional server but it's modular. So I think that the CXL enablement side it would be a sort of a core piece in the actual the media interconnection to the processors in a power efficient way as well, would be a good driver. So I think that would be Samsung. If Samsung said we don't want to partake in the whole thing, but we want to focus on a focus area, then maybe the CXL enablement piece with OCP HPC might be an interesting area for Samsung to focus on.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Just on the other areas, I don't want to pick on anyone in particular, but from an interconnect perspective, Matt, you're the only one on the call, I believe. So it looks like we've got a little bit of a momentum going. At least we're talking about what needs to be done on the interconnect side. And so I think that maybe, in order to get maybe some funding to make that happen as well, would be good. And so on the interconnect side, would you be interested in partaking in putting a proposal together for the interconnect innovations that are needed?
I think we can volunteer to do that.
Okay, great.
Alan, I could use some guidance on exactly what you're looking for, but I think we can do that.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question, actually. Well, yeah, it basically what we've already covered in the interconnect sub-project meetings or work stream meetings, Matt. It's a case of like bringing those into reality, like conductively cooled active cables interconnection, you know, getting a standard around that, and building some test vehicles, and maybe you know, this basically all of the things we've talked about. Obviously, removing things like the through holes and putting tabs are fairly straightforward, but maybe we can even get funding for that, you know, because it's the industry doesn't support it yet. So all of those aspects is to get the ideas into reality on the interconnect side.
Yeah, we can talk about that some more, but generally, yeah, I'm happy to support that.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. I just looking in the chat there. Thanks, Mitch. So Mitch said, sounds like ODSA, BAPI have the DOE contract model figured out. So yeah, so certainly the ODSA, I mean, it's a bit older in some ways, and it has had a lot of active collaboration. BAPI's done a fantastic job of getting collaboration from some decent sized companies, but they're small compared to the huge players, like the OSATs, etc. And they've worked diligently on pulling various specs together, and so certainly he is an excellent model. He's also now employed by the DOE, so he's on an inside track as well. Yeah, he's certainly got it figured out. He's way ahead of the game there. I'm obviously working with him in OCP, and by the way, the ODSA and the OCP are sort of the ones that are going to really drive how does the OCP reshape itself to be looked at fairly or favorably from a government perspective of getting these new open standards into the industry. So I think we're riding on his coattails, but that's the best I can say on there. We don't have more traction than that, and obviously the chiplet world is already happened, and we're trying to bring it from these vertically stacked chiplets to more industry consortium chiplets. So there's obviously a clear business case there, whereas we're sort of innovating from the ground up. There's no real commercial pull here at the moment that's justifying what we're doing. So you can argue that one way or the other. It's not needed. Could be one. We're perfectly happy with the oligopoly of the incumbents. But I guess that's that side of it. I don't know if you have any other comments, Mitch, on your statement there.
No, I was commenting while you were talking, so agreeing completely. You know, we're essentially a PC. I mean, we changed a few things, but essentially the server today is the legacy of a PC from the 80s.
It sure is.
And I didn't know. I thought Boppy was at Intel, but maybe he's on DOE completely now. But however, those are the models that of private companies that do DOE contracts, and certainly HPE had a legacy of that. I wasn't that familiar with it, but HP Labs is largely contract driven.
Actually, just on that, I did go. I went and met with Andreas from Zero ASIC at the UCLA had a chips workshop where because they do a ton of research on the chip side. So that was a workshop that I went to last minute, and I did meet a lady that's in HP Labs, and I think her husband is as well. And you know, I gave her a quick intro to what we're up to. But I was wondering, I know Michael Whitaker, the CTO there, really well, and I did talk to him at Supercomputing. We could bring HPE into this, and he said we should talk more.
Yeah, Mike is not HP Labs. He's the high performance computing business unit.
Oh,
which
right.
which is good. However, he's very tightly aligned with at that level with, say, Apollo Fabrigoski and that team. Andrew Wheeler runs HP Labs now, who's in Fort Collins.
Right.
And so there's a whole group underneath him, and that, you know, that would be, but who knows if there would be opportunity there. There could be, and we can, I mean, we can have that. I know how to at least open that conversation up. That we
Well, I
might
mean,
think about that.
mean, if I mean, the only challenge with HP is they are the only incumbent standing, so
Yeah.
so, they're not necessarily that interested.
Right. I mean, it's we can have a conversation about it offline, maybe.
Right. Right.
I will say, just a not to throw any cold water on this topic, but it is largely a nonprofit, a profit and loss loser.
Oh, for
It's-
HP.
Well, for the whole high end HPC industry, and
Right.
just kind of state it. You know, whenever I came into Compact, building Reliant servers in '97, they, you know, had a little bit of a saying. I said, "Do you go after these big accounts?" And they said, we can't build a company on stamps."
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so that kind of frames it the way they thought about it, which was
Well,
they didn't
by
go
the way,
after these-
that's part of the problem with the way that the government has it at the moment is they can't get interest in building these big machines. But with a modular approach, you know, you can have, you know, so are we high performance computing or are we more general? It's like there's
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm so focused. That's why I chose my spot is rack scale, which is viable at the edge, meaning what used to be the on-prem data center.
right. And I guess
evaporated and went to the cloud, and we're all hoping that it reemerges.
Right. And well, in my view, if we have this modular architecture that is very scalable to a high performance computer, or it could be a high performance edge node where you just got 20 modules in a telecom box on the side of the street, or you've got 50,000 modules in a data center as frontier supercomputer. And actually, by the way, I'm even talking to is it BMW or Daimler? I was introduced from a contact in supercomputing to them. They're trying to do their own in-car high performance computing, and so we're cross-fertilizing ideas there. Whether what we're doing here is pertinent to them or vice versa.
We're not really doing small modules here.
No. When it no, that's a very good point, Kevin. And when it comes down to your I mean, the Raspberry Pi's already got that market cornered.
Well, when you say modular, maybe we should be looking at that though and say, okay, we need this to work from like the M2 memory module scale up.
Yeah, well, the E3.S is obviously our media module and our potentially I/O module, NIC type I/O module as well. So I think we've got that sort of covered there. But you're right. I think when it comes to latency and performance, if we get into a true augmented reality world, then we're going to need some level of my one example I may have brought up multiple times here is I went to a friend's house who's got a teenager and earned some money and bought himself a $3,000 PC, and it's 800 watts, and his room just turns into a damn oven.
Well, I mean that's a slightly different problem. I mean that's given you've got 800 watts, how do you get rid of it? How do you make it?
Is if a house was built with like 4 or 8 HPCM sites plumbed into the hot water tank and the heating and an exhaust system, then you would just buy your gaming module and plug it into your. So if
I've got a whole plan for smart homes and getting computing into the walls, which it's not really the same problem. I mean, I think we can address that if we say, okay, we're going to do small pluggable modules. If you want to stick a whole lot of those small pluggable modules into a big box and it gets hot, we'll cool it for you.
Yeah, there's clearly two extremes. As you go from the cloud to the powerful edge to the far edge to the IoT, when you get to the IoT, clearly it's all about ultra low power, only turn on when you have to, microwatts, nanowatts.
Well, I kind of argue it's all about low power.
Well, of course it is.
But the thing is, if you because the silicon is basically compute surfaces, you can pack it in really dense if you want, and then you have a problem of how do you get the power out.
It's all about power and power density for sure. Yeah. So power density problem at the and we have power density problem because of data movement.
But I mean, we're sort of doing this in one of the other groups where I was looking at what are the actual components you're dealing with, and the components are essentially the chips. So the question is, what's the minimum packaging for a chip sort of system that's useful, and that's what the chiplet guys are doing. But we don't really have a chiplet strategy for like how do you plug in a chiplet system, and maybe we should be addressing that one here.
You mean a pluggable chiplet?
Well, if somebody creates a chiplet system, it's on an interposer. And the interposers aren't particularly rugged. So the question is, okay, can I build a modular approach to plugging in a chiplet system?
Yeah, so so if you've listened to my presentations, it's like the packages for chiplets are getting so big now, they're almost the size of an OAM module. So why not get rid of the middleman and put these advanced substrates down onto the OAM module itself, or in our case, the HPCM module, and you improve.
It's kind of too big for the edge stuff. I mean, I'm thinking you need something more like the M2 cards.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But we can't boil the ocean here, right, Kevin? I mean,
to some extent, that is the job. How do we get from like the chips to building these supercomputers, and it should sort of all integrate
right well,
together.
Agreed, and well, I think we already are. We're going to. I mean, people would say to me, we're spreading too far already in terms of, but with this one approach, we're trying to do everything from a frontier supercomputer to a telecom box on the side of the street, and even one of our members is saying they want to stick it on a drone.
But your unit of compute is pretty much the same at all levels.
That's probably why it's more in the high performance compute domain as opposed to the.
But you're really talking like at the moment about doing some kind of processor with some memory as your unit of compute.
That's right, but you can mix and match all the heterogeneous ones, right, depending on your application demands. That's the composability.
And that's what we tried to do with the transputer years ago. Is like, okay, you want more power, we just plug more of these things together, and the more you plug together, the more you have the power problem.
Right.
But you should be able to some extent just take the compute model and plug it into your laptop, and it'll work.
Right. Well, yeah. Or if you've got high performance compute in your home, you only need a dumb terminal connected, and you've still got the latency advantages how it is in your laptop.
Yeah. But I mean that's kind of USB plug-in level, but USB is just another SerDes. They're all SerDes. So you should be able to do something where you plug in your chiplet module into some kind of receptacle on your PC or your laptop, and it'll do the work for you.
Right.
But then you can take exactly the same modules, stuff a whole lot of them together in a box, and you've got a supercomputer.
Yeah, so you're saying you want a grain of sand that you put 200 million in to make a frontier supercomputer, I guess.
Well, I mean, one of the things we're looking at in the other group is the heterogeneous compute problem. Saying, okay, I've got specialist processor for different things. So if you give me a module with your specialist processor, which is the same format as the other guys, we'll just plug that in the box, and make up your special machine.
Right.
But I think we're missing that bottom level of modularity at the moment.
Look, I don't disagree we're missing the bottom level of modularity, but equally, I think we're covering far more. I mean, if you look at our industry right now, you've got a different damn box for everything. The telecom people make a different box. Why not use a standard server? Oh, it needs to be NEBS compliant.
But there is standardization at these level of PCIe cards and things,
or even a laptop processor versus a Xeon server processor. Why,
Well, if you
Well,
move
there's
to,
clear, yeah,
sorry.
there's clear, it's a packaging issue. And there are these standard packages today, which this CPUs were fairly standardized for a number of years. They're still in the same power envelope, basically. And we have the OAI SXM. And then we have legacy PCI Express that's showing its years. However, it continues to show its value. And we're up against a form factor dilemma on a couple of fronts. We've all known this. We actually started talking about it 10 years ago in the industry, inside the large OEMs such as HP. And the problem, and that's where Gen Z came from.
Yep.
The issue is that the technologists inside the large OEMs are quiet and they're 10 years ahead of everyone. And the problem is that the companies won't change the technologies because of the cost. And so if you look at HPE, the ProLiant server division, it's a fraction of what it was 10 years ago because the market went to the cloud. And now the cloud folks, although they're all on most of these open source initiatives, they're essentially headed bespoke at this point. And so the DOE is wanting to, help keep that from happening. We don't need 5 large computers, although Watson was probably right. There's going to be 5 or 6 very, very large computers. They're completely bespoke. And then what does the market look outside of that? What does that look like?
Yeah, thanks,
Which was the on-prem days.
And like you
said,
internally you're saying they're like 10 years ahead with their technology, but they're 10 years ahead, and if it ever comes out of their own labs, it'll be proprietary.
The challenge is, I lived that dilemma completely. I brought GPUs into the ProLiant server in 2004, and then we did Fusion IO, which was a great technology. The storage industry absolutely had no clue about it. FPGA computing again was a struggle.
Yep.
But any of the technologists are, if you do anything forward thinking, such as like in-memory compute, which we did that with Memristor. And Memristor was a technology to compete with phase change memory. There is no memory at this point at that latency tier besides DRAM. So that's probably the industry's largest dilemma is what do you do for latency tier from 200 nanoseconds to 5 microseconds? That's different from DRAM.
Well, the phase change memory wasn't bad like Optane. It was just like Intel didn't know what to do with it.
They couldn't, from what I understand, the yields were never good enough.
That didn't really matter because like Intel's going for the high-end performance. They just didn't have a high-performance architecture to go with it.
But Micron had their, we could talk about it all day long.
Yeah.
And Memristor was there. It just was a technology needed to be developed.
Yeah.
However, as it backed out of that, because they couldn't get the volume, they couldn't get the yield up.
Yeah, Memristor's never appeared, but the phase change memory was in the market. It was just like Intel was bleeding cash on that one because they didn't have the right architecture.
Just to bring us back on topic, we're almost at the top of the hour here. So I guess thanks, guys. Those of you that have said that you might be able to help out in beginning to think about putting some proposals together for this DOE response, I would encourage you to try and get going.
Can we start another group to do small module stuff? So rather than the current HPCM, which is like with all the cooling and stuff.
That would be like a whole different. Maybe you don't want to the HPC.
Yeah, that's the module as it is. Alan has stretched it to where there's a gap where the current chiplet packaging it's got if it'll grow just in technology just a bit, it turns into the Alan's HPC module. It's really
well. The thing is that I'm looking for something that's more like I'm looking for something more like the solid state drives that you put in laptops, that kind of scale of module.
So Kevin, we've already got that in this module format. We've got 16 E3.S modules.
And
Jerry?
capped at 40 watts. And so the whole discussion there is around 40 watts. It's a power envelope issue.
Yeah,
It is. It's a mechanical and power envelope. That's what we're doing. And design.
I think I've missed that in the presentations. If you've got something small and modular.
So I recommend you watch my OCP Global Summit presentation from October. Go on
But
to the wiki and
The pressure on E3S is that 40 watts is not enough.
that's right. That's the other problem, right?
Yeah, it's first. I mean,
Well,
it's
40 watts.
envelope,
40 watts
and
is
then
what you can do at the edge.
All right, guys. We're
Yeah.
There's a good discussion. In terms of creating something beyond the E3S, you know, we're struggling to get this thing off the ground as it is.
Well, I'm saying we can
widen
divide the effort though. We can say, okay, we're going to do a sub whatever.
There's a larger-
Maybe you create a separate OCP low performance computing sub project for it.
I wouldn't call it that.
Larger format. There's another larger format that Annette from Cisco leads for a larger power envelope. That is the next one beyond E3S. So there's a whole effort driven by Meta and Cisco and Dell and HPE are all on it, and they've been driving. They released the latest spec at OCP Summit.
Well, I'm sort of more, can we build like secure computing modules? If you've got some computing you want to do, can you drop it on some kind of stick that you plug in?
That's DC SCM, data center security module.
Yeah, but not for data centers, just general.
Well, I know the economics of scale. You can't turn a laptop into a supercomputer. We tried it.
I would disagree with that. You can't do it with Intel hardware, but you know.
Okay, guys,
you can plug a lot of things in.
We're over the hour, and we're over the hour, and we're going off topic. So I think maybe you guys can take it offline if you want to chat it a little bit more. But thank you, everybody, and I was going to say I'm not sure if there's much desire to have our next call, which is literally the week before Christmas. I can still do it probably. So maybe we can go ahead and just see what the turnout is. All right, but thank you very much. And if I don't speak to you, have a good Christmas or however you celebrate the holidays. Bye.
Thank you, bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.